Hi, and welcome to the second video in our PowerShell series about creating HTML reports. So in the first video, we saw how to create a very simple HTML report using the convert-to-html commandlet. So we actually got basically we used the get service commandlet to get all of our services. We selected the few columns that we really wanted in our report. We saw how to use the convert-to-html and then output that to a file. And then we also saw how to add some CSS to our table, to our report, to make it look a little bit nicer and have the ability to hover over the certain rows to know what row our mouse is over, which actually ended up looking something like this. So this is what we did in the first video. If you haven't seen that first video, I would highly recommend going back to look at it just so you understand how the convert to HTML works, know what we did, maybe learn a little bit about CSS if you don't know about CSS yet. And in this video, what we're actually going to be doing is doing some specific formatting based on the different columns. So where it's running in automatic, we're going to be labeling that as green. If it's stopped, but it's also a manual service, we're going to make that orange because maybe that's something to look at. But if it's actually stopped and automatic, which we actually have some of those here somewhere. I do believe that we do have some. Yes, so right here, we have extensible authentication protocol. It is, oops, sorry. The Microsoft Edge update service is stopped, but it's also automatic. So that should actually be flagged as red in our report because that service should actually be running. So we're going to want to highlight that to the user and say, this is something that you need to look at. I'm just going to scroll down so you guys can actually see it because my camera was over top. So that's the Microsoft Edge update service for us. It is stopped, but is also automatic, so it should be running. So we're going to make sure that that actually gets lit up red in our report that we're going to be doing. So what we're actually going to be doing as well is working off of the script from the last video. So we're not going to be starting fresh. We will be starting with what we've had in the last video. The only thing that I will be doing is changing the HTML path that we're going to be creating. I'm going to be changing this to detailed. And then this way we can actually just start right off where we left off last time and work from there. So what we actually first need to do is actually remove this line, which is, for me, it's line 21. It's where we took the services and converted to HTML with CSS. Because I'm just going to go over what this line exactly did again. So it was creating our HTML code, which we still want HTML code, but what we actually want this time, because we're going to have custom formatting, we need to go through each row of our table. So all we actually want to generate with the convert to HTML is just the table and not the entire page. So what we actually need to do is actually remove pretty much the entire thing. We're going to be outing to the file a little bit later on in this one. What we're going to actually want to do is convert to HTML and add the property or the parameter of fragment. And what this is going to actually do is, if we actually run this, it's going to just create our table. So we're actually going to want to store that in a variable, and we're going to do some things to this variable afterwards that's actually going to let us edit the table and add some classes to it. Because by adding classes to our HTML tags, we could then reference those classes in our CSS. This way, if you have multiple tables, we can do that as well. Like you can have different styles for different tables if you're creating a very large report. We're just going to have one table for now, but we will be creating a class for that table. So let's go ahead and let's create our variable here. We're going to call it HTML table, and we're going to make that equal to our services, convert to HTML, and then fragment. Now, what we actually need to do to be able to modify this HTML table, because as you see, it's just plain text right now. What we actually need to do is convert the HTML table to XML, and we can actually then use PowerShell to modify the XML, create attributes for our classes that we're going to be adding in and referencing through CSS to style them. So let's go ahead and let's create our XML object here. So we're going to do that by creating a pair of square brackets and putting XML. And we are going to be a $ XML for our variable here. And we're going to make that equal to HTML table. Now what this is going to do, it's going to take our HTML table, convert that to an XML object, and store that in our variable $XML. Then what we're going to want to do is we are actually going to want to create a class for our XML, or our table in this case. So what we actually want to do is create a variable here called table class, and we're going to make that equal to XML dot create attribute. And we're going to create the attribute called class because that's what we want. We want to add a class to our XML table or HTML table. And then what we want to do is we want to name that class. So we're going to do a table class dot value, and we're going to name this services because that's really what our table is. It's our services. So we're going to name it services. And then what we need to do once we've created the class, we've assigned the name to our class, what we need to do now is we need to actually add that class to our table. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a XML dot table dot attributes dot append, and we are going to add our $table class. And if we actually run all this code here, and we actually just look at our XML variable now. So if we just look at XML variable, we're going to see that we see a table, which is how we did the dot reference to table. Now, if we look at dot table, what we're going to see as well is now we see our class and we see services, we see call group, and we see TR, which are the different rows. Now, what you can actually do as well is do an XML.outer XML, and this is going to give you the HTML code itself for the table. So if we actually go all the way to the top here, if you guys are more familiar with HTML code, here's our table, and here's our class that we just created. So we can actually reference this with our CSS. Now, to reference classes in CSS, we're going to see that in just a little bit, but it is dot class name. So to reference this specific table, it would be dot services. Now, if you have multiple tables, maybe you want to style them slightly different, so it's a little bit easier to distinguish between a service and a process, maybe if you're showing them both on the same report. I like to keep one table per report. It's just a lot easier on the user to actually read the info. But let's actually go ahead and let's keep going because now we've added a class to our table. But what we actually need to do now is go through all the different rows in our table and check the value of the status and check the value of the start type, and then assign that row a class as well to distinguish whether or not it should be orange, it should be green, it should be red. So we're going to be creating that right now. So now the way to actually loop through the different rows in our XML table, what we're actually going to do is do a for each, and we're going to call this table row in, and we're going to do in XML dot table dot select nodes, and we are going to select the node of TR because those are our rows, and we're going to close that with a parentheses, and we're going to do an open and closing curly bracket. And then what we can actually do is if we just do a table row here and we go ahead and we print this out, you're going to see it doesn't print out very, very nicely. So we have a TH, that's really about it. So what we actually need to do is if we do a table row dot TD, and the reason why it looks like this is PowerShell, I think it's Visual Studio Code, but I believe the ISE does this as well. So the first row in the table is table headers, which is a TH. All the other rows are TRs. But PowerShell doesn't really like showing those different objects very nicely. So what actually comes in handy is if you do a write output here and we do a few double quotes and we do a variable wrapper, we do table row dot td. I think that should probably be okay. I think that might give us some output. Yeah, so there is our basically each row for our table here, but it doesn't actually output the table row headers. If we wanted to do that, what we would actually have to do is a write output of th, and I believe that that will actually output the headers, but it will also output a blank line between each one because there is no th in each row, but here is the headers with our th. So that's just a little aside of how we can actually see the info. If you just try to output the table row, it might look a little weird if you're using Visual Studio Code, and I believe the ISC does the same thing, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. So once we actually start looping through each row, what we actually want to do here is we want to do a table row dot set attribute, and we want to set our attribute for class, and we want it to become part of a table row. All right, perfect. And then what we actually want to do now here is we want to start doing some if statements and some else if statements to check the different values in our status and our start type. So what we actually want to do here is just an if statement, and then we're going to do a pair of parentheses, and we're actually going to want to do another pair of parentheses, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that this table row, because we don't want to modify the header, so what we want to make sure is the table row has the TDs, not THs, and we also want to make sure that the table row dot TD. Now for us, if we actually look at table row dot TD, as you can see, we had Xbox Net API service, Xbox Live networking service, stopped, and manual. So this is actually an array. So if we actually do table row TD2, we will see that that is stopped. So this is actually the status row, is number 2 in our case. And that's because we selected name, display name, status, and start type. If you did those in a different order, or if you added other ones, your number might be different. So it's just good to kind of like output the TD and then counting again, 0 based index, 0, 1, and 2. Stopped is number 2. So you can do it that way. If it is equal to stopped and the table row dot TD and 3 is going to be equal to manual, and that should be good. And now let's do a pair of curly brackets. So if it is stopped and if it is manual, what we actually want to do in that case is we want to add a class. So we're going to do a table row dot set attribute, and we want to set the attribute of class, and we want to set that to not running. Yes, not running, and then not running manual. And then what we want to do is an else if Now what we can actually do here is copy this line, because all we're going to be doing is modifying it. So if it is stopped and it is automatic instead of manual, oops, automatic, what we want to do in this case is do a table row set attribute class not running auto. So we're just going to take a look at these two right now. We're not going to do anything else. We're just going to do when it's stopped and stopped for manual and automatic. So we're not going to do the ones that are running just yet. I just don't want to get too far ahead and lose you guys and make it too complicated. I do want to make it at least digestible as much as I can. So what we actually want to do then here is at the end, we want to go ahead and create a variable called final HTML table. And we want to do that equal to a square bracket, string square bracket. And we are going to do a : format. And then we are going to go ahead and create a div and put our outer XML in there. So what we actually want to do here is do a single quote. And we are going to do that a greater than symbol. I just have to find that on the keyboard again here. So greater than symbol, and then a div, and then class. And we're going to name this. So now we're going to put a pair of double quotes, which is why we used single quotes on the outside. And then table div. And then we're going to do a lesser than symbol. Then what we're going to do here, which we haven't really seen a whole lot on this channel, but we're going to do an open and close curly bracket here with a number 0. And then again, a greater than symbol / div to close off our div here. And then we're going to do a comma outside the single quotes. And we're going to do XML dot outer XML. So what this is actually going to do, this is going to create our table inside of a div, so we can actually add that into our XML. So let's go ahead and let's just run this entire thing here. And then what we want to do, one last part, is then do a convert to HTML. And then what we want to do is a body. And what we're going to put in the body right now is just final HTML table. And what we want to then do as well is put a head, and we're going to put that to our CSS variable. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a out file, and then file path, and then path to export. Now what we need to do is if we actually run this, we're actually going to see that it's not going to look a whole lot different. So if we actually run this right now, and we go into our folder here, and we go and look at detailed, we're going to see it looks exactly the same. And we're going to be like, well, we did all that extra work. It doesn't really look a whole lot different. But all we actually did was add the classes. We still need to do the work in the CSS. So that's why I didn't want to get too carried away in adding all these different classes. What we actually want to do now is modify our CSS up here to actually be able to style those. So what we actually want to do is do a tr dot what did I name them? Not running manual. So for the TR that are not running manual, so this specifies the row and this specifies the class of the row. What we actually want to do is we want to do a background color is going to equal to orange. And then what we want to do is a not running auto as well. So we're going to have our tr not running auto, and then open and closing curly bracket. And we're going to set the background color here to red. And let's go ahead and let's save that. And let's actually run this again. And if we actually go ahead and we open our detailed report, here we have it. As we can already see, we have the stopped manual here. We still have our hover, so we can actually still see very easily the details. We're going to see a little problem here very shortly, but once we actually go down here, there they are. So these are actually stopped and automatic. But as you can see, because of our hover sets the text to red, that actually disappears. So let's actually go ahead and let's fix that. So what we'll actually want to do is on the hover, instead of changing the text to red, we're just going to keep it as black. And that should be good. And then there's one other thing here as well. So as you notice here, if we're hovering, it's actually supposed to set the background color to light gray. And it's not doing that. So let's actually just save it. Let's rerun it just to actually show you guys that exact thing. So once we actually go into our detailed report here, we're going to see that the background color doesn't change, but on the ones that are still white, it still changes. And that is actually because the way that CSS actually works, it goes in order. And it also matters of the specificity of how you're actually specifying to your classes and to your targets. So what we would actually want to do is put this tr:hover all the way at the bottom. That should actually be the last CSS rule. If we actually run this now, we are going to see if we refresh this. Now, if we actually hover over, we can actually see that it is gray. Now, maybe this isn't something you want. Maybe you actually want it to keep it the actual color. I actually want to keep it the actual color. So I'm going to keep this tr hover over here. But just in case you guys are actually wanting to do a hover where it changes the background color, always make sure that that's going to be your last class if you're doing these other background color changes on different classes. But now we've added these classes. It is very, very easy to add more. So all we need to do is copy paste this else if statement here. And we can actually say, let's see where the status is going to be running and automatic. So let's do running auto. So if it's running auto, we are actually going to just copy this so I don't make any typos in here. So let's do a tr running auto. And we're going to do an open and closing curly bracket. And we're going to do the background color is going to be set to green. Now, if we actually run this again, we go ahead and we refresh our report. There it is. So running and automatic is actually set to green. Now, maybe our running manual, we also want that set to green. So all we would actually need to do, if it's running, we just want it set to green. So what we can actually do is remove our and here. So if it's equal to running, we don't really care about the start type. If it's running, it's good. It should be running. Maybe you don't want that in your scenario. You would just have to build the different conditions for what you actually want. In my case, for this video, anything that's running, I just want it green because I don't really need to worry about it. And then there's other things of if something is stopped, but it's also disabled, that's actually a good thing. I don't really need to worry about it. But maybe I want it a slightly different color. So this way I can actually see those. So maybe what we would want to do is let's give that here another else if. They are stopped and And the start type is disabled. What we want to do is not running disabled. So we have this new class here. So let's add another class in our CSS, which is going to be tr not running disabled. And we want this background color to be maybe, let's do a light pink. Maybe we want a little bit of like highlight on them, just to make sure that they actually should be disabled. And if we run that here and we refresh it, there it is. Those are now in pink. So we've covered all the cases here. But, you know, it never hurts to also add an else statement here. And we can actually do a table row and maybe have a not specified class here. So if we do a tr, just copy that here to make sure I spell it the exact same way. tr, and then we do a background, background color, and we put this to, let's put this to violet. Now, of course, you can use RGB colors. You can use hexadecimal colors. I just don't really remember the colors that I would really want to use, so I could just use the named colors. It works just as well. We won't be able to see our violet example here because there's really nothing that would actually fit that. But here we have all the different rows that are styled very, very differently. And of course, our table row is also now different because it fits into the else statement. So maybe what we want to do actually is, no, that's all right. The else, it could be not specified. That works as the table header. But maybe what we can actually do is add another else if just before here. And if it is a th, what we can do is, for that, we can do, it is a header. And then we can actually do a tr.header and then curly brackets, and we can do a background color and then white. That should be good. I think that that'll work. And if we refresh that, there it is. It is now white. So we actually did end up seeing the violet just because the else covered our th example. Now, let's say now we're running this report. It looks really, really good, but there's no title. The title on our tab is detailed.html. We can actually add some information here. I'm going to be doing this a little quick because the video is going a little long. And I'm actually going to have some more information on the convert to HTML. So we're going to be doing another video as well on this. But let's go ahead and let's add a header to our page and also change the title on our page as well. So what we actually want to do is, we can do this anywhere. I like to actually create it before the HTML table variable. So what I like to create is, I like to create a base HTML variable, and I'm going to make this equal to a literal string. So as we've seen how to do this multiple times already with the @ symbol and then single quote, all we're going to do here is we're going to put our, let's do h1 tags, and let's do services report, and let's close our h1 tag here. And then all we need to do, so once we've created this base HTML, all we need to do is in the body is do base HTML plus final HTML table. So this is going to take that base HTML and add the final HTML table. So it's going to take that h1, it's going to take the div, combine them together, and then we also pass in our head of CSS. So it's going to add our CSS code in there as well. And then all we need to do is do one more parameter here called title. And we can actually say Jacked Programmers Services Report. And if we actually run this entire code here and we refresh it, and something did not go as planned. So let's actually go ahead and let's see what exactly did not work out here. Did I save it? And oh, there we go. I must have just not really ran it properly here. So there's the services report. Still shows the details. Let me actually just close the browser here and reopen it. And let me just inspect this here. And in our head, we don't see the title yet. Just make sure that looks all good. Let me just rerun this here. Let me actually just change this here to a little bit of a shorter title and path to export. That looks all good. We do a title here, so we have all of that. Let me just make sure that it is actually generating a title here. And oh, because I am putting a head actually, sorry, if you are adding CSS inline, I'm actually going to be covering how to add a CSS file in the next video. But if you are doing a head of this style, what you're actually going to want to do to add a title to your page, this is actually a kind of a gotcha sometimes. I still sometimes forget it. What you're going to want to do is add the title tags inside of your HTML here for the CSS. So actually a proper name for this in this case would actually be head. And then we can actually put Jacked Programmers Services Report. And let's just change this here for head. And if we actually now run this here and we look at our detailed, there's the title and there's the services report. So you guys can actually learn from my mistakes here of not always using that parameter depending on, especially on what you're doing. So if you are specifying a head here, a lot of these other parameters actually do not work, like title. Title will not work. It will take the header object that you pass in instead. So always be sure if you are using the inline, kind of like the inline CSS style here, where you're just putting the style inside the header, that you also put the title here as well if you're going to put a title to your report. In the next video, we're actually going to be seeing how we can actually put styles in CSS files and use those instead. There are limitations to those, but I'll go over that in the next video. If you guys have any comments or questions, please let me know in the comment section. I do realize that this could be quite confusing, especially if you're not used to manipulating XML objects, and especially if you're not used to using CSS or HTML. This could get a little confusing. If you guys have any comments or questions, please let me know down below. And be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, also hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video comes out. And I will see you guys on the next video.